You guys, you guys want to know like one of the biggest trick questions ever asked? When you're asked, especially the troops in the military, it's always, do you love your country? And guys, this is the biggest trick question because, maybe decades ago, I could see saying yes. Yes, I absolutely do love my country. But nowadays, this is such a trick question because if you say yes, I love my country, what you're saying yes to is you're saying that yes, I love my country and that I accept all the BS that comes with it. And this is a problem because let me tell you what, like, I'm at a point where I'm very angry. Right now, I don't love this country. That doesn't mean I'm a threat to it. It doesn't mean I'm a terrorist. And what that means is that like yes, I love this country as in I love the grounds, as in I love the land. What I don't love is the majority of the people that it comes with, and even more so, the entire system that we live in. Because the system that we live in is built around lies, heavily rooted in greed. It's structured through debt. So well, also, yeah, manipulation too. You know, it's rooted in manipulation. Just control, all the control factors and aspects of this life in this day and age. And to me, it's completely unacceptable. I see that American dream, they said, a very long time ago. Maybe it was for them back then, but over all those decades, something happened, and I mean, clearly it was greed, right? I mean, because how do you justify the rising cost of living? You know, the rising prices of everything, literally. How do you justify that? It doesn't add up to me, not one bit. Especially while our minimum wage is still sitting at like $7 an hour. Those, the math is just not math in there, like at all. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about that because I am stuck making minimum wage. That's not what it's about. I don't make minimum wage, and quite frankly, the last time I made minimum wage was probably my first 2 or 3 jobs I ever had, and that was a very long time ago. But like I was saying, how this whole system, how it's structured in greed, and to create that debt for everybody, so that the system gets to sit on their asses and feed off of us citizens as they become richer and richer, and as we are forced further and deeper into debt, and control and manipulation, the further we are lied to. And the fact is, guys, is that a lot of us citizens, in fact, I think most of us, are at a point now where we've found ourselves completely depressed. A lot of us are so depressed that it's like we've been just about completely desensitized. I know I'm at a specific point, so I could speak for myself in this matter, to where, I used to have, a certain level of excitement and interest in doing, specific things, day-to-day activities, and even working certain jobs. I used to have hobbies. I used to enjoy doing things. I used to enjoy going for a drive in the car, just an aimless drive, and go sightseeing and, blast the music and just let loose. But it's like those days are far gone. Those days are long gone. And it's because of the cost of everything. I think back when I used to go on those aimless drives, and, back then I always had a souped up car, flashy, customized car. It was always one of the ones that got all the looks. It was always the head turner, and I always had the loudest stereo. And, it was like those were the days, guys. And, a lot of people did too. It wasn't just me. But those days, guys, the price of gas was 89 cents a gallon. Do you know how much it costed to fill my tank? About $10. Now you do a comparison, from then until now. So I can think back then, the type of vehicles I used to drive. I can compare to basically what I have now. It's just a small 4-cylinder, but now, in this day and age, to fill that gas tank costs about $45. So a full gas tank in the types of vehicles I used to drive in my younger years went from $10 to $45. And you know what hasn't changed barely at all over that course of time? Basically our pay rates, our income levels have pretty much stayed the same the entire time, while everything else has been jacked up through the roof. But not only have prices been jacked up through the roof, not only has the system become more greedy, you call it inflation, but it's also a shrinkflation, because as they jacked up all the prices to everything, they also lessened the quantity of things, they lessened the quality of things, the packaging, became cheaper. Like, everything's worse, so much worse. Food is just horrible now. Like I've even noticed, like, even guys, even beer seems to not taste right anymore. Things that used to have a certain taste to them, they taste off now. They don't really taste good, or some of the things have no taste at all. I don't know what exactly is going on in this world, but I can say that it is completely unacceptable. And the only ones that are accepting it, the only ones that are cheering it on and rooting for it, are the ones that are the system, the controllers, or so-called elites. And let me tell you something. Do you know how the elites became the elites to begin with? Just like how I said, when those guys on those boats arrived here to these lands, and they took it. They just took it by force. And that's what's going on now. And that's how the elites became the elites. They lied, they manipulated, they're controlling, and they are just taking. We citizens, we go out and we work these jobs, we work our butts off for, a silly little pay rate that's nowhere near our worth. You know, it's nowhere near our worth, as per hourly wage. Yet we accepted it. You know, we tried to ignore it and turn a blind eye and say, well, I can make it. I'll get through this. You know, I'm going to grind and I'm going to hustle and I'm going to make a life. I'm going to build a life out of this. But as the years go on, they keep changing standards, they keep rising costs, and they increasingly make it more and more difficult, and quite frankly, at this point, damn near impossible to build that life of your dreams. The only ones that get the life of their dreams are those that built that system, those that are running it. You know, we work these jobs, like I said, we grind, we hustle, but the only ones that are getting richer are the ones that we are working for. And they just take from us. They take. They don't really give raises. You know, it's like there's no such thing as sick days anymore here in America. We have our vacation days, but is being out sick a vacation? Not at the least. And it's really sad. The standard of vacation days is usually when we take these jobs, we're hired. Usually we start off with a week, 1 week paid vacation. Yet usually we have to earn it over time. And with a week, it's not really a week, guys. It's basically 5 days. Okay, it's really 5 days, and then includes your weekend, so that's a week. Some jobs will offer 2 weeks paid vacation, up front, which is more appreciable, but still not enough. It's still not enough to recoup from burnout and depression, exhaustion. I've been doing some research and I've been hearing people in other countries talking about how their standard out there for vacation time, for leave, for paid time off, is usually around a month. 4 weeks. And some get even more. And those people have been hearing about how we citizens in the U.S. are treated and what's expected of us, and they're over there shaking their heads. It's more like we're just prisoners here, guys. We are. We're low-paid slaves, and it's really sad. And if you're not willing to be one of those low-paid slaves, meaning if you're not willing to participate in their game, to go into that debt, to pay into the system so that you can be paid, hopefully. What I mean by that is like schooling, really. I mean, people go to college for so many years, they go to tens of thousands of dollars into debt to get some piece of paper that says they have a degree in that field of talent. Yet quite often, those same people can't even find employment in that realm of study that they paid for. So, most of the time it's like, what's the point of going to school then? Really, it's the greed of the system, and it's to put you into that debt. You are expected to pay the system to hopefully, maybe, get anywhere in life. But as I said all too often, it doesn't happen. And then there's those of us that see the truth. There's those of us that refuse to play the game any longer. You know, we see how, like, most of the time working really doesn't make any difference. All it does is purchase us our basic necessities day to day, week to week, or month to month. But that's about it. And a big problem here is that a lot of people start, that so-called, keeping up with the Joneses mentality. That's envy. So you want this, you want that, you want more, you deserve this, you deserve that, you want the life that they're living, because that life looks great from the surface and on the outside. But in doing so, you're going into more and more debt. And if you're not careful, eventually you will hit a wall, you will crash, and you will lose. Yet you will still be in debt. This is not a free country. It is an illusion. And again, like I said, it is completely rooted in greed. And to keep us people in debt, to keep feeding the controllers, the ones that built the system. We're being used. We are like the peasants out in the courtyard, and they are the kings and queens sitting up in their castles. While they look out the window, they laugh, they mock, and they look down on us because they sit so much higher up. Every once in a while, they may throw some scraps or breadcrumbs out the window. The ones that they didn't enjoy. The ones that they didn't like. The ones that they couldn't accept. That is what we are given. What did not suit them. Or what was unhealthy for them. A lot of times, I'm speaking in analogies here. But all it takes is a little bit of intelligence to understand what I'm saying. And I'm pretty sure the majority of you are intelligent enough to be able to decipher what I am saying. It's not just me feeling this way. And it's not just a feeling, guys. It's the truth. Something's got to give. Something needs to happen. There are far too many overly massive egos living in this society that only care about themselves. And to be honest, what I see is the only thing that's going to make humanity change for the better and make humanity actually come together and give a crap, and care for one another out of love and empathy. I think the only way that's going to happen is by one big, massive, all at once, catastrophic event. Like, if you think about how this country, you got the Yellowstone volcano smack dab in the middle of it. Guys, that volcano is a reset waiting to happen. There's 2 different magma chambers under the ground there in Yellowstone Park. Okay, the first magma chamber spans for miles, and the second magma chamber underneath of that one is much, much bigger. It spans for tens of miles. Over 20, I believe. I think it was at least 26 miles. And it's not just a line, not like a 26-mile line. It's like a lake underground of hot boiling magma. So, if Yellowstone explodes, guess what it's going to leave in the middle of this country? one massive gaping hole. And it's not just going to affect that area, because the fallout from it is going to affect the entire country, maybe even the world, as all the gases and ashes are picked up into the atmosphere and start circling the globe. Everyone's going to feel that one. Everyone's going to suffer for that one. And we will all have to come together and care and help one another survive. Because right now, that love and that care does not exist. And then we think about things like the San Andreas Fault over in California. As with Yellowstone, it's only a matter of time now until that explosion happens. San Andreas Fault is too only a matter of time until it snaps that state, off the map, and quite possibly sink it into the ocean. It's only a matter of time till these things happen. Then you have Miami. Did you guys know? I can be more funny about this. Maybe I could say in an English accent, or Australian even. But did you know that Miami is in fact built on top of soft coral reef? And it's been documented that it is slowly sinking each year. Who builds an entire city like that? They may as well build it on sand. Soft coral is no better. I mean, it's continuously sinking little by little each year. Maybe not noticeable by eye, but it is being measured. So how long before that whole place sinks into the ocean? Another thing is, if San Andreas decides to go, if that fury decides to unleash itself, earthquakes, guys, and those are gonna be big ones, probably over 8.0 on the Richter scales. What comes with earthquakes, right? Tsunamis. So, this may include another great flood happening. Because if something that massive happened, a great flood of that magnitude will literally wash over the entire continent of the United States of greed. I can't help but think about the story of ancient Atlantis, when that was destroyed and washed into the sea. The story is said because it's when the people became way too greedy. They were never satisfied, they were never fulfilled. They began acting out. Everyone became extremely lustful. Nothing was ever enough. And they were starting to fight amongst one another too. And the Most High Creator washed it off the map. I fear this is where the U.S. is headed. And honestly, in my opinion, it probably needs to happen. And if any of us survive, especially if all these catastrophes all seem to happen all at once, yeah, we humans, we citizens would have to be fighting for our lives to save one another and help one another. People will literally have to learn empathy and love and throw away their ego. Learn how to give and care. You know, but I can understand how that's so hard to do in this day and age with this system that we live in that is keeping us so bound and held down. It's like they got their foot on our necks. Just like the statue of Archangel Michael having Satan pinned down on the ground with his foot on his neck. But right now in this moment, it's quite the opposite. Right now, the devil has his foot on our necks. But one way or another, that's going to change. That will reverse. Sadly, things are only probably going to get much worse before they get better. And in my opinion, I already think that they are worse enough. Things are just terrible. But with the way things are now, and how so many of us are just struggling and even suffering, honestly, I myself would open arms, openly accept a major catastrophe. I would embrace it. Because I would know that either extinction will come after or better would come after. Because at this point, things are only getting worse. And I'm tired of seeing it every day. I'm tired of hearing it. It's rubbed in our faces. You know, and it's like the devil, the enemy, has taken over so many people. Like he's got complete control of them. And it clearly shows. Clearly shows. You know, if you've read the Bible, you know, there's certain sections in the Bible that completely explain what is going on in the world right now, guys. And if you know what you're looking at, if you know how to decipher that message that you read, you're going to see it. I can't not see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, but it's kind of like that movie The Matrix. You know, it's like once they take somebody out of the Matrix, like once you're out of it, you can't go back in. And that's what it's like once you see the truth. I mean, once you see the truth, you can't unsee the truth. And why would you want to accept that lie again anyway? Maybe it would make you feel a little more comfortable because that's just the way that you were used to having things. That's the way that you're used to living. But when it comes down to it, it's all so dark. It's all so toxic. And you would just be further accepting yourself to be participating in being basically a low-paid prisoner, a low-paid slave. And don't get me wrong, guys. Once you actually do see this stuff, once you start seeing all these things, and once you begin to not accept any of it and speak out against it, you will be exiled. You will literally feel like you have been exiled out of society in its entirety. Every aspect. And it sucks. It sucks. But it needs to happen. You know, I think all those people that fought in the Civil War, you know, in my opinion, they all died for nothing. And it's really sad. Because all those new laws, you know, equality and all that stuff they wanted to abolish and get rid of and made right, all those soldiers fought and died for those things to happen. And they cast an illusion as if they won and those things were made right. But They really weren't. They just continued to do those things in a much more sneaky kind of way. They just made the illusion thicker. And once you see it, it's so hard to accept. But, I mean, you can't not accept it. It happened. And it is still happening. People are waking up. I can see that. People are waking up. But for me, it's like all I can do is sit here and wait around for everyone else to catch up. And this is such a long, drawn out process. Like, come on, everybody. We can change things, but we need to do it together. I can't wait till we get there. Because all this is just not right. Try to keep your heads up. Try to have a good rest of your day. May God bless us all. Bye, guys.